goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creatives, where we sit down often with a special guest and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. And who are we? Well, I am Simon, and this is the Office Daddy. Together we are Cinemate Films, Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee, drinking beer, and talking shop with others in the industry. Again, this is another episode I can't wait to have. Before we do have this episode, I'll just say that it is sponsored by With Jack. So, Yay, I'll get onto that a little bit later in the show. Greg, who are we talking to today?
We are talking to Rafal Bojar.
Hey, how you doing?
Perfect. Awesome. Hi, guys.
Do you have any drinks with you? We've got a coffee to pour here.
Oh, definitely. Like the day without coffee is just, horrible start.
I agree. I actually came in early this morning and I realized I hadn't had my morning coffee, so I had to brew a Chemex. So this is actually my second Chemex of the day, which means I might be very hard to understand if I speak very, very quickly. So I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to my listeners. There you go, Greg. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. That's full.
Cheers, guys.
I don't know. I should probably pour it before. And what we're drinking is Dark Arts coffee, for any of those people out there who like us talking about our coffee. It's called the Sunrise over Locus Mortis, and it's a filter, pre-ground, and we did it in the V60. No, we didn't. We did it in the Chemex. Sorry, my bad. But yeah, Rafal, tell us about yourself. What'd you do? How did you do it? Yeah.
Yes, just a brief introduction. My name is Rafal Bojar, and I'm a Polish photographer / amateur cinematographer, I would say. I'm 39, almost 40, and I started photography when I was around 32, so it was a little bit late, I would say. Before I worked as a flight attendant for many years, and that's when I started to travel. And I discovered that the world is beautiful, and just my idea was to be independent and to still travel like in my previous job.
Very cool, very cool. All right. And so where are you based now?
So I'm based in Warsaw, Poland. That's where I live. Though me and my girlfriend Gosia, we used to travel quite a bit. So at home this year, I just been a few weeks. So we are just here and there,
Yeah. And so does she? I'm assuming, just like us, that your work is fairly seasonal. Does she mind you leaving for long stretches of time, or is that not how it is?
So with Gosia, it's very simple because she works as a brand, like a graphic designer. She designed brand identity for some small companies. So she has the same work and lifestyle as me. So that's why it's so easy for us to travel together.
That is very cool.
Cool. Yeah. What have you been up to recently? Have you been busy the last few weeks?
Yeah, so we just came back from, let's say, like a camping ground where we lived in the small trailer in a beautiful place in Poland, like the seaside, forests, etc. Nice community of people and just a simple life.
Cool.
That's what I like. That's what I love.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds nice. Yeah. So looking at your sort of portfolio and the images you produce, they're definitely not traditional wedding photography, I would say. So talk to us a bit about your portfolio and what sort of, how you would describe your photography.
I would describe as a curiosity for stories in general. I started as a normal, let's say, like a typical wedding photographer. And then I discovered once while shooting one of my stories that people carry so many hidden ideas inside of them, you know, and they are not talking about them often, you know. And I have this kind of, I think I have this unique little talent of conversation with people, of curiosity, and that's why people are often eager to just talk about their life and some talents that they never talk about it, you know, and those little things. And then I discovered that I have this this talent for connecting dots in general, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned that you moved into photography, but what motivated that decision to begin with?
So as I said at the beginning and at my introduction, I worked as a flight attendant, and that was a really nice job for a student, let's say. But when I was older and older, I felt I'm just like a number on my tag, you know. And you know, it's like a corporation job that nobody cares if you're gonna fly or someone else. Is just a matter that we need to have a crew for this flight. And the whole my life, I felt like I would like to be independent and to do what I like, you know. That was my also problem in the just a normal job, because I used to say what I think. And when you work in a corporation, you have to be more diplomatic, I would say, you know. And that's why I knew that I have to find a job that I can be my own captain, you know, sailing the world, let's say. So I had a lot of layovers at my job. So I was boring so much on those layovers, you know. Just imagine being 10 times in Dominican Republic in the same resort, same beach, same hotel. It's beautiful, of course, but after a while, you're just searching for things that you can fill your time with. So I just grabbed my camera, I took my headphones, I played my favorite music, and I just went for a walk. And then that's how I started to spend my time during layovers, shooting more and more, learning how to operate my camera. At the beginning was just a hobby. I didn't even thought that it might be my job. And then after a few workshops, I felt like, okay, I'm feeling that this photography is very important in my life. I need to think where I can make some money. And wedding industry in general was the best one for the beginners, you know, because it's quite easy to get into this world.
Yes.
Yeah, it's easy to get into, but it's not
That's
easy
true.
to do. It's not easy to do well.
It's not
No.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've mentioned there that it started as a hobby, became a job, and you've developed your style and look. How would you say your passion for photography has evolved over the years? Is it still the same?
Yes, and definitely, and it's still changing. I love in general to experiment with my camera, and I'm very open to try even new techniques that I never used before. So I was shooting, for example, like my first discovery that completely changed my style was shooting in Madeira. We've been shooting in a really harsh conditions. It was rainy, but it was kind of like just imagine cloud that is passing by, you know. It's not like a just typical rain that drops, but very humid surrounding in general. And you know, after 5 minutes, I wasn't even sure that my photos are sharp. I couldn't see through my viewfinder, you know. And but I decided to just continue to just do what I can at those conditions. And when I came back and when I upload my photos on my computer, I saw like, oh my God, those photos looks like film, you know, like stills. And then I started to experiment. Like, right, I remember my colleagues, they were always cleaning their lenses and the equipment, and I was doing the opposite, you know. And I was experimenting more and more with like, okay, I need to kind of destroy this digital look and to mimic a little bit like a film cameras. Sometimes even the focus is not on the point. Sometimes it's like slightly on the front or on the back, you know. And also recently I've been experimenting a lot with the opposite that I used to shoot. So for example, I used to shoot on aperture 1.4 and the time, let's say 1/500, etc. And now I reverse this completely, like f16 and 120. 125 is like a hotspot for me. And instead of achieving this blurriness because of the aperture, I try to achieve this blurry effect because of the time, you know.
Oh.
And it's amazing what kind of photos you can have, and those photos are a little bit experimental. Sometimes, like the results can be like, you know, you can't shoot like that every time. You know, every single photo is kind of unique. So I like to discover in general things in photography and in films as well.
Yeah. Have you ever? Did you ever have any experience with shooting actual film, like 35mm film or black and white film, or did you have any experience? So it was just purely
never
the aesthetic that you got.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You know, in general, I have a lot of memories from my childhood. So like I loved how we spent the time in the past, and like those feelings in general, I try to put into my photography. So the style is my choice, you know, because I want people to bring to the past with this photography.
Yeah.
I want them feel free without like this things that surrounds us every day, like computers, phones, social media, etc. I want to close them a little bit in the bubble that they feel like in a magical environment. Yeah.
When you said you would close your aperture down to 16, was that an inspiration to anything? Because obviously with really old film cameras, when you didn't have like the ability to measure the light coming in, a good rule of thumb was to set your aperture to 16 and have it be that what is it?
I can't remember the specifics
shutter
of
speed.
it, but there's a name to a technique called Sunny 16.
Yeah. So in case you didn't have any way of measuring the light coming in, if it was a bright sunny day with direct sunlight, you knew to set your aperture to 16. Again, cannot remember the shutter speed. That's very annoying. But yeah, had you heard of any like film rules, or was
Never.
you just wanted to?
It was just my, you know, that's so amazing that people can achieve very similar effects without even knowing about each other. Because of curiosity and just being a child, you know. It's like, okay, what if everyone is shooting mainly recently in 1.4, how can I be different a little bit from the others, right? So you have to think like you have to be very different. So let's just change your aperture. Like the thing that you were scared to do for the past few years, just do it and see what's going to happen. And of course, when there is a lot of light, when the aperture is very high, you have to lower your time, right?
Yeah.
And then you're shooting and you are trying to figure out which time is the best. You know, it's that it's not too blurry, but it's still blurry, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel in yourself that you can be in a scene, get a sense of it, and quickly pull out some like shutter speeds that you kind of know kind of roughly where you'd be going? Is that kind of natural to you at this point in your career, or is it very much take a picture, have a look, take a picture, have a look, adjust some settings, take a picture until you get it right.
I'm into adjusting settings until I see that things is working for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Not against me,
Yeah.
And also, like, I was also curious, for example, that's what I bought, external recorder, Ninja 5, because I wanted to record in more, like, the better quality. And then I discovered that, like, it's almost like a raw files, like the things that we shoot photos. And then I tried to, let's say, that cut some frames from the footage, and they almost edited the same way as the photos. Like, I was like, when I discovered this, I was like, boom,
Yeah.
The photos that you would never shoot that way, you can have more images. That's why I also try to, for example, like one of the things that I do sometimes is, like, I shoot stories of weddings, and I also make a short story for my couple. So for me, it's very easy to get both things.
Yeah. So, like, from the beginning, you've come on. We've only really talked about your photography work, but you also make films. In case our listeners didn't know. So tell us a bit about like why you got into film as well. Like, did you just have an idea and you thought, well, that might be interesting, and you just did it, or?
That's in general, like, that's why one story here, like the brand that I run, and it's actually in my project. I wouldn't say it's not only brand, it's like my life project. And I was curious if people, for example, would be willing to have, besides photos during the shoot, they will be willing to have a short video, let's say 1 minute, until from 1 to 3 full minutes. It depends of, like, what kind of the story is.
Yeah.
And so, for example, at the beginning, I was just experimenting while I was shooting. I was just also taking some little snaps, like little bits of films, and then I was doing more and more until I could make a short video. And then I started to experiment with recording people, with asking them questions, with trying to get something emotional from them, like something very important, things that maybe they never shared with the world. And then I started to just, like, experiment with editing, with those voiceovers, with some music, and the project was we're developing more and more and more. So yeah.
That's so cool.
So do you always only do video as a sort of extra to your photo package, or do you work with other photographers at all?
No, not always. If it's, let's say, like a wedding in Tuscany, and the couple wants to have, like, just a simple film for the wedding, I will hire a second shooter, and we will film it together. But the film will be the main, like the second shooter will be the main, let's say, filmmaker. I will be just supporting and just giving direction, what kind of vibes I want to have for the video. And during the wedding, I'm mostly shooting. I don't do both.
Right.
But sometimes I have those couples that I make, let's say, stories about them, but not stories about the wedding itself. So I have to be before. Let's say I need to have 2 days before the wedding. Let's say I'm filming them mainly and shooting just a little bit. And during the wedding, I'm just mainly shooting. And if it's like a typical wedding, I will hire another videographer to support me.
And is it someone that you work with regularly?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
You mentioned something there about you pulled some of the images from the raw footage from the Ninja 5 and edited them like your photos. Is that something you just did to play and experiment with, or would you incorporate them into the gallery to deliver to the final client?
definitely.
Yeah.
I would deliver them. I
Okay.
mean, when you shoot in 4K, you can easily have like the really high resolution. So I even did it recently in China. You know, it was funny, funny to do. I mean, funny, not funny. You know, I traveled there to mainly film the story. And I don't know why I put my Atomos batteries into my luggage, not a cabin luggage.
Right,
And you know, when I came to the airport, I'm just like checking my baggage. I saw the card from the customs that they took out my batteries because it's not allowed to travel with them on the check-in baggage. So so they took my batteries for my Atomos. I couldn't film it with this high resolution, you know. So I just decided to go with just what I have, it's just my camera, you know.
Yeah.
And I was filming mainly in black and white. It was my conscious decision. And when I was just like going through the footage, I was just like checking if there is anything that looks nice. I started to cut more and more those frames, and I started to edit them in Lightroom and Photoshop. And honestly, they went really well. Of course, with Atomos, they will be the quality would be like 3 times higher, but I still really love them. They look very film like the old cameras. So when you add some grain, etc., they look really well. You know, if I would show you on my blog, probably you would not see the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Why you mentioned shooting in black and white? What when you have a creative choice like that to make, what are the aspects or specific details that allow you to make a decision like that, which I would consider not a risky decision, but you know, it's like you're making a conscious effort to shoot black and white there. What about a wedding or an event makes you feel comfortable to
I would never film the wedding in the black and white. Like,
okay.
I mean, with the black and white preview on my Ninja 5, of course, definitely.
Okay.
But that was the case that I, you know, when I started to film in color, and I was like, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's not how I see the world, you know. I need to, because I also shoot in black and white, like it's just a preview,
right? Got you. Yeah.
On my camera, you know. When I change it to color, like Jesus Christ, everything looks crap, you know. I need to change it for black and white. Everything distracts me, and I can't see the world as I used to see, you know.
Yeah. So we know a few photographers who shoot, like they set the camera so that everything that they see, every image that they see is black and white. But obviously when the images come out, they're color. Why would you recommend that people use that approach to take images rather than have the color be in the image and they just go about their day shooting with color? Yeah.
And you know, that the thing that I have learned at the beginning, just going through to many workshops and listening to some really great photographers, they used to say that you have to master your light. I mean, available light, right?
Yeah.
You have to master it as much as you can. You have to be able to shoot in every condition. Then you have to nail your photos on your camera instead of just trying to mimic lights on Lightroom or Photoshop, etc. So black and white helped me to find interesting light, interesting contrasts. That was the main decision. And when I started to shoot in black and white, and I started to see places and things that I never have never seen in color. Yeah. It's just like the world is just like shifting 180 degrees, you know, and you are completely discovering new world. Because the camera sees the world different, right?
Yeah.
And that was my decision, and I just fell in love in black and white previews, you know.
Yeah.
And I saw when you have a really good contrast, you have a really good lights. The editing is just a touch at the end.
Yeah.
It's way much easier than just trying to have interesting editing without it.
So I'm speaking on behalf of people who don't shoot like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do they need to change their mindset when it comes to looking for light when they use the black and white method? Or is it sorry,
photography is in general like a time machine, right? We try to capture moments, and we try to save them for many years that will come. Sometimes generation that will discover those photos, and even us when we're gonna be older. And so you have to find in yourself like a child and this curiosity, right? In my opinion, is just being open for trying the things that you never tried and even you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because like the comfort zone in general is, in many occasions, it's you have to just go beyond, right? You have to be try things that you never tried, and I would say just try it, the black and white, and try to find, for example, go with your family, go with someone that you know with, even into the city, into the fields, countryside, etc. When the light is interesting, when you have contrast between lights and shadows, and try to see the world with this black and white,
Yeah.
and you will see that you are seeing everything completely different than before, right?
Yeah. I listeners, if you're listening or watching, if you're inspired to try this technique, I really want to know what your thoughts are and how it changes the way you shoot.
Yeah.
So come back to this video and write it in the comments, because it's really interesting.
I like that. I like that approach of thinking of photography like a time machine. Like we talk about it being nostalgic and transporting you back to a memory, but thinking of it as like a time machine, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So what exactly do you offer your couples? Like what's in your package, and how do you sort of position your pricing and your sort of offering?
So like my offer is changing as I'm changing, let's say.
Yeah.
So I mainly offer photography, but I also mentioned that I make videos and films for my couples, very simple ones. Just with music, can be with, I call them actually visual stories instead of videos. And I describe that I can use photos, I can use series of photos, and I can use footage, I can use voiceover, I can use music. It's like pot that you can mix anything you want, and yeah, like sometimes people like to have those videos. So the video is just something extra that I recommend I can do for them, and that's mainly that's the thing that I do mainly. Like I focus mainly on photography. Before I was trying to make more videos at the past, but you as a filmmaker, you know how time consuming this process is.
Yeah.
So I'm not forcing to do many films. I do films for myself, my side project, like the stories that I do just for being creative, or discovering interesting person and just going, visiting them and just trying to make a story with,
Yep.
That's mainly what I do.
All right. In terms of like where you start pricing wise, and then how many images that you give your couples, where's your starting line?
Yeah. So if it's, let's say, very short elopement, let's say half a day or 8 hours, it's around 200 photos. And if it's like a wedding, it's gonna be 350 photos.
Okay.
And if I have more time with people, it can be up to 500 photos, let's say. Sometimes I spend with my couples many days, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had the stories that I sometimes have been spending with them even 5, 6, 7 days. I remember one story from Canada. I never been to Canada, so I really wanted to be a part of it. They were building everything by themselves. It was really DIY wedding. They were building branches, tables, everything. The small family came and they were helping. So I was just documenting this process, and I was just enjoying my time in Canada as well. So
Very cool.
in general, I try to treat photography also as a way of spending my time and new experiences. I don't treat it only as a work. So, for example, I have to go there and go back as quick as I can. Sometimes I take this opportunity to spend some more time somewhere in the world.
Very cool. Very cool. So I can't remember if I asked. For a 1-day wedding, and a couple came to you, how much would they? I mean, maybe you don't want to talk about your pricing, but I know a lot of people. I think pricing seems to be the one thing that a lot of newcomers to the industry really struggle with, especially when it comes to like their own perceived value. It's like how good am I? How much can I charge? I think that's an interesting conversation that I think people are scared of. But obviously, you've been doing this for many years, and like you said, you're with your couples for days at a time. How much is like a 1 day with you to photograph, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. For example, I have this rule that I try to charge how much people are charging at the certain places in the world.
Okay.
I don't have one typical pricing list. For example, my prices for Polish weddings or stories are different than for stories in Italy or in United States, because like people are just spending more or less money for it, and they budget can be different. So in Italy, for example, my budget for 1 day wedding, and sometimes I offer just I can come the day before, and I can just spend with them some time and just take some candid, simple photos. It's around 3,500 to 4,000 euros,
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
And for the Polish weddings, I charge less because people don't have such a budget. But for me, the traveling and everything is way much easier, and it takes less effort than traveling. So
Yeah. Plus, you're used to it with your past career.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that makes sense, because we work with a lot of Americans over here that come to Scotland for a Scottish wedding, and a lot of the time they're coming over and they're sort of requesting prices from suppliers based here, and they're really surprised by how cheap some people are, because the wedding market in America is a lot higher. So they're like, oh wow, we can get more for our money here. And
I remember.
Pricing,
I remember when I got my first my first inquiries from America, from United States. I started to check like how much people are charging there for the weddings, let's say in Los Angeles, and I saw that, let's say, like very middle range photographer can take from like easily $4,000-5,000, like easily, no problems, that's the budget they have and even more. And I was like, no way. I mean, I need to figure out how to work with those people with a little bit more budgets. And this will give me opportunity to stay with them a little bit longer. So my stories will be completed, because like in general, I'm a person who comparing to, let's say, food industry, I'm like a slow food restaurant that you serve things slowly, you enjoy time there, it's like an experience. And I feel terrible when my time is limited and I can't do what it's in my mind or what I want, my ideas, Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm with you. I wonder. Again, I just want to hear from people. I want to hear, because people in the UK, they don't like talking about pricing. They don't like talking about it. They put weird values on how much they should charge, what they should charge, why, when. It's just a super interesting kind of conversation to have, and I think people probably don't do enough research in terms of like looking at what other countries do. And I think when you're starting off, the initial idea is like, you're just, okay, say you start off in Glasgow. What do Glasgow photographers charge? Blah, 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 blah. And then you're kind of like, you're sticking yourself in this like local bubble, and you're not really, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. Never mind. We'll move on.
You know what I felt? Maybe because of my also background. Like my dad is like a golden. I don't know if it's the correct English term, but he fixes things. He's like a golden hand. He has this ability to fix and build. And I remember since I was young, I remember like people were using his skills and not paying him a match like the way they should. So as a kid and just seeing this from the perspective, I was like, I will never work for someone for just a little bit. If I'm gonna have a talent, I'm gonna charge for it, because that's in general, like those kind of works needs so much time to discover things and to find your style. You are just experimenting a lot and doing side projects, not because only your creativity, but to implement those things and techniques into like those photos that we shoot during the weddings.
Yeah, absolutely. There was something I wanted to go back to, something you said about setting yourself apart from what other people were doing. Well, actually, I think you were talking about what you used to do, and then you changed your settings and did the complete opposite. How do you feel about the wedding industry in general when it comes to like the work that it produces? And I know it's kind of a big grand thing, but yeah.
In general, I'm impressed how this industry changed during past years. When I was starting, I remember I discovered photographers, for example, like Jonas Peterson, Nirav Patel, Dylan and Joanna Kitchener's, and those Ed Pierce and those people, and I was still working as a flight attendant. I remember I always had my tablet with me, and any single free moment that I had in the airplane, I had their blogs uploaded into it. And I was just like watching and scrolling. Yeah. I think hundreds or even thousands of times. I saw those posts so many times, and I was impressed how wedding photography can be. Because my experience with wedding photos was just a cheesy, like this kind of cheesy photos, sessions, etc. that was back then.
Yeah.
And so now I think that sky is the limit in wedding industry, and so many people are brave enough to do what they feel they want to have on their weddings, and photographers also, so many great photographers. The only thing that I would say I'm missing is stories. They took amazing photos, but I miss stories of those people. Like I would love to see who they are besides of the wedding. Something like from their life, or in general some talents of them, not just preparation shots, etc. You know, like ceremonies, etc. That's the only thing that I'm missing is this. But in general, I think this industry is amazing and it's changing so fast. Like it's like a TGV, train. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah. I definitely want to get talking a little bit more about that. But I'm just going to put out a little bit of YouTube push here. If you've enjoyed this conversation so far, you can join us on youtube.com/@perspective by Cinemate. And you can also join our Instagram account and follow us there at Perspective by Cinemate. Awesome.
Yeah.
Rafal, you're known for your cinematic, intimate stories. What does that mean to you, like the term cinematic?
That's a very interesting question, and honestly, I was even looking for the answer yesterday on YouTube, because it's very hard to describe it, but at the same time, it's very easy to see the difference, right? I would say cinematic eye for capturing stories is the eye that average person doesn't see the world like that. It's like a documentarist, like the journalistic style is just about kind of like comparing to my stories, I try to separate people from the world and from the surroundings. I try to build this kind of feeling that nobody lives besides them. You know, you don't see people walking by. I mean, I'm not talking about weddings. I'm talking about my stories, you know, when I have some time with people. And with this cinematic also means that you can use the light and the environment more aesthetically pleasing, you know. I'm still searching for the answer for this term.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there are things that you can't describe with the words. You just feel it and you just go for it, you know?
Yeah. I wanted to ask because I think, so we've been doing this for about 13 years, and I remember when people just used to say all these buzzwords to get people to like want to have a wedding video, and the term cinematic was always used, and it was always followed by HD cinematic or 4K, like, and it became like this kind of like almost like a
cliche.
Everybody was using it. Yeah,
everyone was using it, and it didn't really mean anything because everyone was using it. So it's just like it's interesting because it doesn't really have any technical, detailed description on what you're creating. But the way I feel like you describe it is more like a you know, almost like a feeling. Like
I would, you know, if I would compare it to something else, it's just imagine going to the restaurant where the chef have this kind of very unique tastes. The things that you can taste during this experience is you can just taste it every day. So like cinematic quality of photos or stories is that you are entering to someone's worlds that see the world a little bit different, and giving you this experience through his eyes, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. How does that term cinematic translate to your photography? Or is it again that kind of way that you described, like, you know, not showing anyone else, like just focusing on the couple? And
you know, I would describe as a separation, as I said before, you know, because I try to achieve through this cinematic look separation people from the environment in general. Sometimes they are synchronized with the environment, but the environment itself is also kind of separated from the bigger environment, you know? It's like this is my style, you know. I love to show those stories in a way that people it doesn't matter if they're gonna watch today on in 10 years, on 20 years, they won't gonna be sure which year I was shooting.
Yeah.
Can be 2020, but maybe it could be in 1980s, you know?
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you have?
Yeah.
You've mentioned sort of the separation, and you previously talked about just letting your lens get dirty to sort of mess with image. Is there any other techniques that you use in your sort of photography to sort of tell your stories and to add to the sort of environment and feel of the image?
Yeah, you know, maybe that's a little bit that the answer will be a little bit about cinematic quality of the photos, because I'm obsessed in a technique that is called quadrants. I don't know if you know this.
Quadrants?
Quadrants.
Oh, I've not heard about this.
No.
So when you have, let's say, when you have a screen of your camera, so instead of using this rule of photography, like how you call it, you have two lines.
Oh, is it the rule of thirds?
Yeah, rule of thirds. So instead of using this rule of thirds, I use quadrants. So you have a screen and you just divide your screen half in the middle, horizontally, half in the middle vertically. And that's when you can start playing your game, like director's game in your head, because you have four quadrants, but you can also have two quadrants here and two quadrants here. And then you can, for example, one subject or something can happen above, something can happen below. Sometimes something can happen on the right, something additionally can happen on the left. You know, sometimes the subject can be forward, backward, and sometimes you can play even. It's amazing technique that I watched on Every Frame a Painting. It's a YouTube channel, and it was the example was film Drive, because this film was filmed 100% in this technique.
Okay.
And since I discovered quadrants, my photography completely changed. You know, I started to figure out like more about the actions. I need to have people doing something, you know, in the background, on the foreground, something together, etc., etc.
Yeah, I love that. So I was just quickly having a look. Yeah.
If you're gonna type, if you guys are curious about this technique, just type Every Frame a Painting, spacebar Drive, and you're gonna find this video, and it's just amazing. You know?
Yeah.
I'm assuming the YouTube channel at Every Frame a Painting.
Yes.
Is that right? Cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy who was doing it is just stop it. But there is 28 or something videos, and everyone is like the best workshop you can have.
Yeah.
For free.
Awesome.
You know,
Cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna check that out.
We'll touch on. You mentioned like about your posing and how you interact with couples. So we'll touch on that a bit later. But first of all, like what we've talked about how you shoot and stuff. What's in your kit bag? What are you shooting on other than the Ninja 5?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was for almost whole my photographic life, I was very minimalistic. I was shooting mainly with 35mm lens. Now I'm trying to step out of my comfort zone. I'm trying to shoot more with 58 Nikkor lens and 85.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the people.
I know. I was just gonna say to like the Nikkor 58. I'm assuming that's an old vintage lens that we're talking about here, because I do have that lens, and it's quite an interesting focal length, the 58.
It is.
It's funny that the old kind of vintage lenses kind of have these little, like, when did it become 34, 24, 35, 50, 85? Like, those are so set in their ways now, right? But
True.
the old vintage lenses have very interesting focal lengths. I always find that interesting.
And in the future, I would love to experiment with manual focus lenses, like the really vintage ones that have very unique bokeh,
Yeah.
or sometimes they are not perfect in terms of sharpness, but have something something different. You know, I recently, for example, watched Narcos Mexico. I don't know if you have seen this series, and they used very weird lens for the first or even the whole 3 seasons, because at the edges it's kind of like it's kind of blurry. You know, I have no idea what kind of lenses they used for this TV show, but I really love this look. It really focuses you in the center, more in the center of the frame.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to shoot mainly with 58. You know, and just forcing myself to shoot more and more, and sometimes 85. And you know, as I told you, I studied a lot by myself, like photographers like Dylan and Joanna Kitcheners, you know. And you can see like how they shoot. Like, for example, they often shoot. Let's say the couple is preparing or is just being in one room, and they are shooting from the other room with the longer focus, like 85 or 50, and they are kind of hiding everything in the shadows, etc., separating their subjects. And I really love this technique, you know, of separation.
Yeah, I shot with Sean Bell recently, and he's playing about with shooting on a 135 a lot more, which is quite a big change from a lot of people's normal setup.
That is
exactly.
Is that just outside for Lobins, or is that like for preps, or
just mainly couple shoot? It was on.
Just mainly couple shoot. Okay.
But yeah, it's just he's playing. Every these like people who are considered top of their game and really successful, they're all still playing. And like yourself, you're always experimenting and trying new things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, during the ceremony, it would be probably impossible to shoot with 85 only, because, I mean, everything is just happening so fast. And with 85, you have to be a little bit away from your subject, so you have to run about. And with just, you know, that's why I try to master first 35. I try to shoot like I had weddings that I shoot everything with 35. I forced myself to do it, you know. And then when I felt, okay, I know this lens, I know what I can do with it, let's go for another one, you know. That's why I'm more into 58 right now.
It's and so when you're at a wedding, are you dual wielding your cameras? Do you have like a harness strap on? And
no, I, you know, because of my back pain, you know, I don't like to carry too much stuff with me. So I have, let's say, camera and strap and just additional little bag beside my belt. And with another, let's say, like extra batteries, cards, and 1 or 2 lenses. And the backpack is just somewhere nearby.
Oh, so you suffer from back pain as well? Okay. Because I too suffer from back pain from time to time. Is there anything that you have found that helps?
You know, in general, I had many situations that I have, let's say, harnesses with 2 cameras and lenses, and when I was walking, people were bumping me and my stuff, and I didn't like this. You know, I didn't like the feeling that people also see me as a photographer. I try to be more invisible, I would say.
Do you have any techniques for being more invisible at a wedding?
Be like a shark, you know, just shoot and disappear and observe all the time. You know, that's how I shoot my weddings in general. I don't stay in one place too long. But of course, with films, it's different. You can't just run like a crazy chicken. You know, during the wedding, you have to have your shots done.
Absolutely. You know, I want to get back to something that we were talking about dirtying the lens and like other techniques. I love one of my favorite techniques is just exposing for the highlights. So when other people are, when we get it in Scotland, like very harsh, direct light, and it creates all these like sharp lines and stuff. That is my absolute favorite kind of weather to shoot in. Not when we're outside, of course, but like when the light's coming through the windows and the architecture of whatever building is creating these like weird patterns on the ground. That is absolutely just like, that's a playground for me, is how I feel, because like you mentioned, like hiding things in the shadows and stuff like that. I feel like it's a very it's an interesting way of, because you're dealing with a high contrast scene, just like shoving someone and playing with the shapes. And yeah, I would totally recommend someone, just next time they have like harsh shadows, just start playing around in the harsh light, instead of like sneaking away from it and treating it like it's a bad thing. Just like, you know.
And I love what you said, Simon, and that's actually why I started monochrome preview mode on my cameras.
Yes.
That's actually the reason. By the way, I love when you said when we had sun in the Scotland.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I recently have seen a map of cloudy and sunny weather in the world, and the Scotland was almost like Arctic. So like very shadow cloudy place, right?
Yeah. But I suppose, you know, if you're in Scotland and you're thinking, I don't have much sun, dirty your lens up with some rain and just don't wipe away that rain.
Exactly.
Yeah. So have you faced any like specific challenges in your journey that have like shaped you as a photographer?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted even to mention about it, but that's great that you asked. Maybe it's not like a challenge, but you know, I'm a person who likes to observe and who likes to analyze, and how you know. Okay, into the conclusion. I started a little bit to experiment with doing symbolic ceremonies for my couples, like vows renewal, and helping them to prepare everything, to build environment for it, or even like to find some interesting venue and musicians and even people who can help them to renew their vows and even the wedding. So I started to be a little bit as a wedding planner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like a really wedding planner, but let's say a photographer wedding planner, you know? And that's what I started to do. And I've done a few stories and weddings that I was planning just a ceremony, not a wedding, just a ceremony.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So I was in charge for finding a spot for the ceremony. I was in charge to find officiant. I was in charge to find a musician, and I was in charge of even doing some rituals and old things that people used to do in the past. You know?
So how would you tackle a challenge like that? Is it? I don't want to say. Is it pure selfishness that you get to like, okay, we're going to choose this location because it's going to look good, but then it's not exactly. I don't mean selfish as like the negative way. I mean like.
My idea was that, like, you know, people often they completely don't remember the things like where the ceremony was, but they have their photos. The photos can be great and bad. It depends of if someone who doesn't know, who knows nothing about photography and light and everything, those kind of environments that helps us. That's why we as photographers and videographers, we should be involved in educating our clients, you know, because who is better than us, right?
Yeah.
So I treat it as a form of being professional, and giving those advices and skills to offering to my clients, you know, because they don't have to have this knowledge, but I have. Yeah. So that's why I started to just educate people about this, and even to show them that they can do their ceremony in a little bit different way, more family and friends orientated. You know, that people can't be separated, they can be closer. We can build amazing environment just with a simple things, items, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have to spend a lot of money for it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just imagine like a family gathering that the uncle is playing guitar, everything is close to each other. There are some bells, magical gauzy bells in the background, you know, you can hear only the wind, and the people are just more into emotions, you know.
Yeah. Sounds like that'll involve a lot more sort of I feel like your work probably has quite a bit pre-production involved, but doing that almost planning stage will add a lot more work on your end. Is that like, that's a big change in your business, I guess? Is that would you say you're good at the business side of things as well?
I never been good in the business side of my work. Like, you know, of course, I'm not saying that I don't make money. I mean, I make money, but if I would choose very, let's say, commercial way, I would have probably so much work. But that was my just wise decision, you know. That I didn't want it to feel like I felt in my previous job, that I felt just in a corporation, just going to work and working and just don't feeling passion and energy to do it. And I chose to a little bit more complicated way, but it's I discovered so many amazing things because of it, and I have been in so many amazing places. I met so many amazing couples because of this approach, you know. Of course, there were couples that completely didn't resonate with me. They wanted to have just a great service, but they didn't want to interact with the person who is taking it, and I'm totally fine with it, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. I think we take a similar approach to the way that we view business. I think from the get-go that Greg and I knew we were going to be in this for the long run.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say.
And yes, we make money out of it. But I think to do it for the long run, you have to enjoy yourself, enjoy the experience. And I mean, that's why we say enjoy your life. Like that is the tagline of this whole approach that we take. And I think that sometimes people, I mean, each their own. If you want to run a wedding business, like just a full-on business, there's going to be people who want to buy your service.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. But I think we're just a little bit different in terms of that. So you know, I observed this industry and some of the people that I, let's say, admired at the beginning, and most of those people kind of disappeared from the industry because at some point they were shooting too much stuff, and probably they overshoot them. You know, they just didn't took time for themselves, for the family to rest, to enjoy, to get new ideas. They were just mainly doing the same work until they got burned, probably, or boring, you know. This work is very not usual. It's like if you love photography, you should consider it as a long run, which means you have to take care of yourself, of your body, of your mental health, and of enjoying your life without camera as well. Hell yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm Ashley from With Jack. I'm one of the sponsors of the Perspective podcast. With Jack helps to keep photographers in business by supporting them financially and legally if they have problems with a client or they make a mistake in their work. We've all had that fear of our CF card or our hard drive failing and losing important photos. You can find out more at withjack.co.uk. Head over there and find out how we can help you be a confident creative.
Your shoot day or wedding day arrives, and we've kind of spoke about this a little bit, but what is your approach now? You've got to the venue, or wherever you're shooting, tell us what your approach is from now on.
Oh my God. I mean, every case is a little bit different, and there are cases that I'm coming back to the same spot that I know, that I was visiting before. There are cases that I'm visiting just the first time in my life, but for sure I'm a little bit in general obsessed about scouting and trying to figure out what I can do during the wedding day itself,
Yeah.
So normally I would go the day before just to check where we can go together with the couple, somewhere nearby, or what I can do there. And sometimes as I told you, like I offer my help with doing ceremony, and so I'm also trying to find a spot where the ceremony can be. I mean, checking the light at the certain time that the ceremony will be.
Yeah.
So, but it can be very, very different. Like I shoot a lot of little weddings, elopements, and just those things. And I can't imagine myself without doing it, because just imagine letting people to stand wherever and then to struggle with the light, and the shadows and the harsh light, especially. So,
Yeah. Do you ever scout and then on the wedding day things totally change and you have to
Yeah, definitely. But at least I try to have a spot that have a safe light. Let's say if it's safe in the shadows, if it's cloudy, but the main reason it's safe when it's very sunny. Let's say I remember the wedding that I mentioned in Canada that I was just documenting their preparation, and I suggested this place, and they asked me for the hour of the ceremony. I said like, okay, today it's looking great, and it's 5 p.m. It's 12, and it should be fine. And during the wedding day, it was kind of harsh light, and I was like, Jesus Christ, we should wait for more. But yeah. But at the end, it went really well. It wasn't that bad, actually. Also, I remember the case in Iceland, for example. I'll just drop this story really fast, throw the story very fast. I remember we scouted the spot for the ceremony with the couple the day before, and when we came there the day after and we started to walk with the officiant, she said like, but guys, we can't go there. Can you see this line? It's like just behind this line, it's a national park. And we are not allowed to be there, and you have to find another spot. And as you know, Iceland is a very popular place, many tourists walking by, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what I can do in this situation. So like, okay, I asked for 5 minutes just to rewind my thoughts, and I walked, and I saw like there is, okay, we can't be in the canyon, but maybe we can go down there where the river is and a little piece of land, etc. So, and I saw there is like a shadow and the light. It's like somewhere in between. So I asked the officiant, she said, yeah, we can go there. So I walk her and I explained her, please, can you see like the shadow here? And she said, yes, please just stand and stand in the spot until you will feel the sun is hitting your face. And when you will, when you're gonna feel that you are that the sun is disappearing from your face, just make a little step forward. That was just like, let's say, my one advice for her. And I also explained this very briefly to my couples, because, just imagine she in the shadow and the couple in the sun. So she would be completely in the darkness when the couple would be exposed good, and etc. And the photos went way much better than I was planning before. But I was trusting my skills of like finding interesting place for the contrast, like light and shadow, and also like this monochrome technique helped me because my exposure was on point, like perfect. I was
Nice.
seeing everything. It's like nothing was underexposed or over. So it was the yeah.
Yeah, you just got it right. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah.
There's-
Yeah.
In fact, there's nothing worse than, if things don't go to plan and you're working in like an environment which is like you said, bright sunlight or shadows or
Yeah.
and you have no control. I mean, there was one time we were we were in a building or I can't even remember what the building was, but it wasn't attached to the main venue, but the ceremony was in it. Really small room, and the celebrant had this like just ball of light on her, just
my
a
God.
shape, just half on her body, and there was, because it was so small, there was nowhere for her to move.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what do you do in that situation where you're just like, you're shooting video, you don't have that kind of raw capability of being able to like, you have to make a choice. Is it you expose to the highlights and compromise the shadows, or do you do the opposite? And I can't actually remember what, because it was your angle that you had to make the call. I don't know what I would have done, but what?
I can't remember exactly what I did. I think, I can't remember. If, maybe I changed it. Maybe it was exposed for the highlights when she was doing most of the talking, and then exposed for the shadows because the couple were doing their vows. Can't remember, but that was a situation where it was a specific ceremony room that venue uses. The guests were all set in a specific place, so we don't have that flexibility to fully direct the scene before it starts. So you've got to deal with things as they crop up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
very interesting.
you see, that's why I started to, let's say, educate my couples and trying to be involved in ceremony preparation, because I wanted environment to be my friend, not my enemy. Let's say I don't want to fight during shooting. I want to use like the maximum I can achieve. And I understood in Iceland, for example, I was like, imagine shooting from the shadows towards the light. So you have the rim light, right? And from the other side, you have perfect exposure and everything, and the background is dark. So you have so many varieties in just one light conditions.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
we're talking about light. We've talked about emotions from the couple and stuff. What's your priority list for when you're creating an image? Like, is it light, then emotions, and then anything else? Like, what are you looking for when you're creating an image?
I stopped in general thinking about images, like single images. I mean, I started to more think about set of photos or just stories, and my sometimes it happened that people are very open, and my idea is to get as much as I can emotions from them, even if the photos are not perfect and sharp, but the emotions always win no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's my main purpose. Like, I'm driven by emotions, and like when I started back then and I was going for the workshops, like they were teaching us in Poland, like that you have to find multi layers all the time during your weddings, like actions, someone in the background, someone in the foreground, someone in the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is the reason people shooting weddings is just find multi layers all the time. I mean, and I've heard like on the Polish weddings there are no emotions. I was like hit by thunderstorm, and I was like, what? Like there are no emotions? Like how come during these special days that there are not emotions? And I understood that the person who was teaching it, he is shooting weddings that his clients doesn't have emotions. I mean, those kind of people exist, right? Or doesn't want to show emotions, or even the wedding itself is made in the way that people are kind of feel very stiff, like very, they're kind of scared to be emotional. So that's why I started to make a portfolio that can attract people who in general are into emotions.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
I like that. So you've shot your ceremony, the drink reception's happening, or like what's your approach? And does your approach differ? Because obviously we just kind of talked about it a little bit, from those moments where there are people just chatting and you want to document things, but it's not the emotional moments of the day. First of all, do you still just document things happening?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I separate my stories from weddings. Let's say weddings are more into documentary style.
Yeah.
There are some parts that people are very emotional, and there are some parts where there is some little multi-layers and just some actions or funny situations or interesting composition, lights, and
Oh no, we've lost you. Oh, what's happened? We've lost him. That's right.
love doing it. It's just I just follow the vibe that is at the certain wedding, I guess,
Yeah, Rafal, I'm really sorry to interrupt. We lost your signal for a little bit. Could you just
okay?
Would you just
yeah,
repeat
sure.
what you said?
Sorry, this cable is not perfect.
It's fine. It's fine.
good.
Don't worry.
Yeah. When I finished my
So we just missed what you said. That last thing.
So in terms of like shooting weddings, like every couple, every clients are a little bit different. With some of the people, I have better vibes. With some people, not. And in general, like photography is like a dance, like a synchronization with people.
Yeah.
Some people will give you more freedom. Some people will give you more items and ideas, and some will just be there. And us as a photographers, we have to adjust to those environments. Even the clients from different countries are different. When I shoot, for example, my first couples from Asia, I discovered that the meaning of love for them is different, for example, that couples from America. People from America in general are very open. They are not scared about touching, about intimacy, about even being a little bit naked, etc. And people from Asia are kind of reserved. Like they are more about, like what I discover, like observing them, it's more about friendship and respect and those kind of stuff. So I just thought, I'm not gonna force people to do what they saw on my website. I just let them be who they are.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I'm gonna ask a couple of questions about the like when you have the couple alone. So anytime you've got like a shoot, if it's a couple shoot, or during that kind of wedding part of the day where you're just shooting the couple and you can be as creative as you want, or you can capture the ideas that you have in your mind. Do you have a difference of approach when you shoot your Asian clients compared to your American couples? Like, is that an active thing in your mind? The differences. Does that affect your approach?
Yes, a little bit. Yes, because sometimes I'm in general about let's call it this kind of invisible bubble that everyone has. And some people has more flexibility to push this bubble, or sometimes to enter inside of it for a while.
Yeah.
And some people have this really strong barrier that is just impossible to break it for just a random people that they know for a few days or for a while. So that's why I try to don't over push this bubble, I would say.
Okay.
I try to give people a feeling that they can trust me, they can feel comfortable with me, they can feel themselves. And of course, some Asian clients, they can also be very open. So I always try to just judge where is my boundary that people still feel good and comfortable. But I have, let's say, my photos that I would like to shoot with them, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's more based on the person rather than the culture or where they're from. Or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. I just gave you, let's say, example. Sorry, guys, for that.
That truck is back with a vengeance.
So you mentioned there about you've got certain shots that you want to create with the couple. Is this like poses that you've got in your head, or is most of the time this coming up with them on the spot?
Yeah. So, you know, in general, like my approach to photography is to have ideas for couples, for people, and to give them a little task they can do while I'm shooting.
Yeah.
Because for people in general, it's more they focus is not on me. They don't wait for things that they can do even with each other or just doing something. They can just do wherever they do, and I can just figure out what can where and what can they do. For example, like if someone is playing an instrument or whatever, I can give this task to one person, so the other person can be somewhere in the background, for example, making preparation, makeup, maybe wearing dress or whatever, you know. I'm just trying to figure out and just to give people tasks that they can focus. Sorry for the noise.
It's okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I love to mix, like I try to not keep people and like especially couples together all the time. I love to separate them and just give them little things to do. That's why like 80% of my stories is like pre-production. And pre-production is also like asking people, tell me something about you, like what you like to do, what is your hobby, hidden talent, things you like to do, etc. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes people write a lot, you know. Someone is playing piano, someone is playing trumpet, someone is doing something, was dancing when I was a kid. So like, okay, now I can use, for example, that you can dance, you know, somewhere in the background, and you can just do whatever you do.
Sorry, I think there's an Amazon delivery at the door.
No worries.
We're in like a curtained off studio area, and they're chapping the door.
Honestly.
I thought the pizza came, you know.
I wish it was pizza. When you mentioned about separating people, what's your motivation behind that?
Yeah,
and are you separating people in terms of just like the frame, like you're shooting them, but they're separated, or are you taking time to just create a little moment with one of the people?
Exactly. I mean, I want to have more varieties. Just imagine shooting a couple when you have them together all the time, and try to make an interesting blog.
Yeah.
Or try to make interesting video. I mean, it would be just so boring to have the same characters all the time together, right?
Yeah.
So I need this separation to try to tell just more complex story, you know, because people in general, when they're even together alone at home, they're not like glued to each other, you know.
Yeah.
So I felt like many times while watching some photos that like they were forced too much to be together all the time, and I would love to see them doing something what they love to do, you know.
Yeah, I think videographers struggle with that idea. I think when they go, say it's a wedding and there's the couple shoot, they are, if they're not just copying what the photographer is doing, like they're not putting any input in, then that's one thing. But if they are, I think they struggle with separating the couple. And when I go to do like the couple shoot, I am purposely thinking about what this footage is going to be used for inside the edit. But also, if I just had this footage, that I've created in this little section of the day, could I pull a story out of it? You know? So I'm not just filming the people, I'm shooting their hands, their feet, dust in the air, flares of light. I'm taking the bride and I'm making her do something else, or the groom, or I'm shooting them separately, so that if in my head, if I didn't have any other footage, I would be able to tell some sort of story. And one of my it's never that great to have like a go-to kind of shot, but something that I do tend to like to get is like one of them walking towards the other. You know, so if I've shot them separately and now I'm shooting them going together, then I can then have all the coupley moments together. So I've shot them separately, I've shot them coming together, and now I'm shooting them together. And so it's just kind of like, if I didn't have anything else, could I actually build a story out of that little moment of the day? And I'm wondering how many other people think with that kind of approach. I know certainly certain filmmakers, strangely enough, even though we're capturing and making stories, and that's more of a focus than maybe a photographer might take, now they still miss out on that thinking process. So yeah, is there like do you have like a go-to shot, or like do you do a shot a couple shoot in kind of like a similar way? Like
Of course, I have, let's say, shots that I have to have. Let's say I call them safe shots, and I always gonna do it, you know, just to even feel comfortable to experiment and to do whatever I want later.
Yeah.
And about like there's a question for you, Simon. I'm just curious. Have you ever, let's say, had a couple that you felt like, I feel like that's my best friend that I know for years?
Oh my God. Yes. Funnily enough, this happened at my last wedding. Just recently we were shooting in a mining museum, which was cool. We got to go under the mining museum, and there was dust flying around and cool, weird, like not a wedding environment, just a pure creative shafts of light coming down, and I was loving it. But the groom, when he was talking about the things that he loved and like little moments in the day where I'd be like so the groom, for example, loved music, loves soundtracks, and I'm there by myself, and he's got this music on, and it's the Dune soundtrack, and it's coming, and I'm just like shooting some interiors of specifically seats at this point, and I just get goosebumps because I'm like, oh, the vibe of this moment. And it's coming from the groom and his love of things, and then you get to chatting with him, and it's just like, if I allowed myself to completely geek out, I would appear like such a loser, because all of his like childhood things that he used to do, I used to do. So yes, very much. Although I had to keep it in, I kept it to myself.
And that's why I ask you, because like one of the things I do always, I try to, let's say, have a video call with my couples, and when they choose me, I also try to, during this call, I also try to mention a little bit how I work normally, and when they choose me, they know that I love to know about people. In general, I love to know about my couples, the people that I'm shooting, because I don't want to shoot them only with my own ideas, but also I want to have their own ideas. I want to implement it into my work. And the best example is, for example, like Lara, that when we started this video call, she was just like very official, like, just listening me. First, I forgot to mention, I just asked them to tell about them. So I was just listening in the beginning, and then at the end, I asked them if they're okay if I will just say a few words how I work. So they were just listening me, and at the end, Lara just changed her approach completely, just from being just a listener. She was like smiling, laughing, and just I want to do it now. You know? Because I just mentioned, like, I love to spend time with people. I want to listen them. I want to let them be free, who they, wherever who they are, and just to with them, with me, they can be like a child. They can do whatever I like, and many times we do spontaneous shots and we visit spontaneous places, but I love to give also people like this experience through photography, the things that they normally don't do every day. So Lara was so excited, and when we, just as the last few words, when we came to Iceland and the first shooting, we choose like early morning intimate shots in the hot spring. And, just before that, she said like, Rafal, just before we're going to start, I want to cast a spell. And I was like, what?
Okay.
But I didn't judge her. I mean, you feel like, okay, someone gonna cast a spell, and so maybe I should run. But I am always curious, and like I have this child curiosity in me. And Lara, she was like, when she was a kid, she was a dancer. So when she was casting the spell, and for her casting the spell is she was just giving intentions for the ceremony and for the marriage. It's like in general, she was just whispering some words, like her intentions, and she was just like moving a little bit, almost like waving on the wind and dancing. She was really great when she was young. And I was just silently taking photos, and I was like, whoa, what just happened? That was amazing. And it happened because I let people be who they are, and they feel safe. And that's the reason I try to build trust in my clients in general. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's impossible. But with those people who you feel you have a great vibe, just squeeze them like a lemon and just show them that they can be like a little kiddo again for a while,
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I think allowing them to express themselves gets them excited. Like their energy changes. When I started to talk to our groom, Chris, he was just like just talking soundtracks, and I was just like, oh, this is he was a kind of kid of the 80s, so loved his like sci-fi stuff and superhero things, and I was like, oh, this is the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, and I love that. And he was just like, you could just see his energy change. And it was just like,
like what I think, that there are people who choose brands and also photographers, cinematographers, because they believe in the why people do it, and there are also people that choose brands and photographers because they just want what they do, and those two kind of different clients exist, and we have to be just conscious like for who we want to work. And sometimes it's even hard for me to describe everything in words, because everything is happening into like with the intuition, you just feel you have a great vibe with people, and just like asking to do something, just suggesting giving them a little sparkle or a little seed. And
it definitely sounds like the couples that are investing in a one-story hero process and film or photography, they're really trusting in you completely through your process, that they know sort of what they're getting into. They know your style, then they get to know you through your process. And it seems like, I'm assuming there's no sort of conflict there with what you want to create and the client expectations, because you've probably like educated them enough that they know what to expect and they know what they're getting into. Is that correct?
Yeah, and at the end, like what I have discovered once after one of the ceremonies I did for the couple that already had 50 years, and I prepared like a secret ceremony for them. And they were completely blown away what happened. They said that it was even better than in the church like the years before. And in general, like my purpose is to deliver them the best experience they can have, not only photos, because I believe that this experience will last forever in people's heart and minds. And sometimes people can love photos that are not perfect, even not like epic, but they have great memories connected to them. And sometimes people can have the most epic photos, but they remember the experience with the person who were working for them was just terrible. So they will gonna hate these photos and they will never gonna come back to them. So
Yeah, and we've mentioned that a lot on the podcast, like how people connect with the content that you make. Like if you don't prioritize that experience while you're taking images, while you're with them, when they get whatever they get from you, it's a huge reflection on how they felt on the day. So I was just I wasn't browsing the internet, but I was looking back, and you changed your website recently.
Rafalbojar.com.
Wait, yeah, you're now. Wait, have you changed your website, or is it just my imagination? So I've got onestorehero.com.
Oh yeah, so the one that you are right now, it's more into about like my workshop. So I'm changing this website because I'm just preparing for the workshop. But my main my main website is rafalbojar.com.
All right, so you haven't changed it. Okay, I was like, I must have typed in. I typed in your Instagram handle. Yeah, that's right. Silly me.
Yeah.
But I love your website. I think it's great. It's totally. I would describe it as different from anyone else's because you've got that little dot, and so it's very like you kind of. I know this is going to sound really weird, but when certain websites are just like really basic and you're just like there's nothing different about here, whereas you're kind of there's a wee bit of figuring out what you're doing, just a little bit. You're like, okay, where am I going here? Your words are popping up, and you're kind of forced to read them and appreciate them when they show themselves.
Of course, I try to have something that I can add as a text to my blog. The things that I need to for sure improve into my blogging is to SEO, and in general my website, it's like completely dark for Google, because I never cared about it. And I have to change it.
So I'm gonna ask my next question. I'm gonna interrupt you, so I do apologize. Right. So in my pre-show research, I discovered another photographer who you've worked with, Twyla Jones.
Yep.
You were featured on her episode of the podcast, and that was a few years ago now. And I think it was only one episode that she did, so I don't quite know how I found it. Anyway, you talked about website creation for creativity and storytelling instead of SEO. So when you started talking about that you wanted to do more on SEO, that was intriguing to me because you've kind of spent the last few years kind of not focusing on SEO. So can you tell us what your mindset was and why it's changed?
My approach changed a little bit because the world looked different back then. The reach that we had on social media was way much higher. We could show and share our work it was completely different scale. The social media was booming, and now it's so hard to even to show even to 5% of your followers the things that you post, right? And that's why I think that even though you don't like to do something, you should do it if it's gonna help you or your business. My approach will probably never change. I mean, I will always try to keep my website and the blogs and stories as much as I can, like the way that I want to tell stories, not only like for the SEO purpose, but for sure I need to improve it to just at least to have a chance to get a fight, with the others, because you can be an amazing artist, but if people will not gonna discover your work, like you have no source of income and you just gonna starve, right? And we all want to work and to have this passion continue. So yeah, that's why my approach changed a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to improve my SEO, definitely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I highly recommend to anyone.
Hey, before you continue, Greg, what is your connection with Twyla Jones? Did you shoot her wedding?
Yeah, so
Right, okay.
that was really interesting case, because I was one of the organizers of the workshops in Azores archipelago.
Yeah.
It's like, for those who doesn't know where the place is, it's like in the middle of the Atlantic Oceans, and the islands belongs to Portugal. And I love this place. I visited once and I fell in love, and I felt like this place is like a magical place for the wedding photography workshop, like the international one. So we found the sponsors, and we did the workshop there. We invited Twyla Jones. She was one of the speakers, and just before she came, she asked if I could photograph her elopement. And our idea was like, okay, so instead of just doing after the workshop, let's just do during the workshop. Like, why not? Like on the last day, and let's just invite the people who came. And that's what happened.
Yeah, okay. Because there's one major benefit of like doing the research for these podcasts is that I do find other photographers, and if no one's ever heard of Twyla Jones, because I had never heard of Twyla Jones. Her work is lovely. Like, it's really, really fucking good. And now I want her on the podcast now because, it's bright, it's colorful, it's emotive. So, yeah.
Twyla Jones is in general such an amazing, humble, and great person, photographer, mother. Really, I also, when I shot her wedding, I also made like a little video. It was one of my first videos, who later on went kind of viral in the industry, like the family matter industry, because I made like a story that I called "Humans Are the Real Monsters." I don't know if you have watched it, but if you haven't, and it's about the Oscar, the little boy who's scared to grow up, and for him the grown-ups are like monsters. So he's telling the story that he doesn't want to grow up, he's scared, etc., etc. So it was very interesting for me, like a case that I wanted to create something more meaningful than just family shots, but to implement those things that everyone struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have seen that actually. As you described it, I remember Eric, Renee, we used to live in Glasgow, and he used to pop in quite regular, and he'd just pull up websites and show us people's work. Yeah. That's one of the ones he showed us as like, look at this, it's so cool. Yeah. So,
the quality is just terrible because I didn't know how to film it. But like the most important is the message in the story. And like, when I was visiting Florida, where Twyla is living, after a few months, after the workshop, I was shooting a wedding there, and I felt like, Twyla, I'm gonna be there. I want to visit you. We're gonna spend some time together, So while I was there, like I was just like shooting them randomly, some just candid moments, etc. And I asked Twyla, like, can you tell me like what your boys loves to do, like your kids? And she said like, Oscar loves to tell stories. And I was like, wow, really? Let's listen. So I said like once to Oscar, like, Oscar, let's play our game. Like, I want you to tell a story. And he said, okay, but you need to be first. And I was like, okay, let's improvise. So I started to say like, okay, once upon a time, there was a huge giant who were living in the middle of nowhere, and one day he decided to come and visit a little boy. So he jumped over the huge waters, etc., etc. So I was just like in general explaining myself, just visiting him. I was living in Poland. He doesn't know where it is, and he started to. It was his part, and the way this little boy started to use his voice and excitement and energy, I was like, Jesus Christ, like Twyla is not a hero of this story. Like this little boy is a hero of this story. And the idea that we had is just, I don't know from where we came, like this idea that all the guests that were in this ceremony, they were wearing masks. We asked them to bring it. And then I started to think, okay, all the grown-ups were wearing masks. Only Twyla and Gary were just without masks. And we have another character, Oscar, who is a little boy, and I started to brainstorm. He's like he's amazing. He's like a best narrator. So maybe this story should be about being scared to grow up, because once you're gonna grow up, you're gonna wear your mask. You're gonna be like with many layers. You're gonna lose your child soul. You're gonna be sometimes angry, mad on people, etc. So maybe that's a conflict of this little boy, that he doesn't want to grow up. He wants to be who he is right now without this change. So at the end, this story changed that he was already born as a monster, but it depends of what kind of monster he will become.
Very cool. By the way, if no one's seen it, where can people see it online?
It's on my Vimeo.
It is on your Vimeo. I was having a look at that.
One Story Hero Vimeo, so you should find it.
Yeah, and just for ease, we'll put it in the comment section down below, just so you can click on it and have a look, because it's
the quality. When I watch it, it's terrible, but it's about stories in general.
Exactly. How do you stay inspired? Where do you find your inspiration, and how do you keep things fresh?
There is many inspirations that I implement in my stories from my own past. Like actually the Oscar and being scared of grow up, it was a story about myself. I just found similarities in him, and I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to play with my Legos and puzzles for all my life, and my only one biggest dream was to have so many Legos that I can fill my room and build the whole city.
Yes.
And so there are many times that I take inspiration a little bit from my own life and my own the things that I saw and the things that I felt. Sometimes people are giving me those ideas, that's why that's so important to just keep on asking and be curious. Once I remember when I was about to shoot my couple in Iceland, and I asked them to write me something very honest that maybe they never said before, about their life approach, values, etc., everything. And the girl sent me like a little poem, like a script, in Polish, and when I read it, and she said, "Please don't give it to anyone. I don't want to use it anywhere. It's just for the purpose of your research." And when I started to read it, I was like, "Wow, this has already story, like the formula." You have a conflict somewhere in the middle. You have this like climax, like you have every bit that I just need to translate it, and that's all. And just film it and photograph it, and the job is done. The hardest work that everyone struggle to have a story is just to have a screen, like the screen, right? And I started to ask her, like, it's so beautiful. People need to see it. It's very universal. You have to share it to the world because the message is just unbelievable, And at the end, she agreed, and we did it. And sometimes people carry like a hidden gems, and sometimes we just need to convince them that it's worth to share,
Yeah.
And sometimes, I'm also like my approach, guys, changed. Like before, I was more into spirituality and universe that have a plan. And now I'm into very simple life and very simple answers for everything. I'm not looking for too many complicated ways of approaching life. Life often is as it is, without complicating as my photography and films sometimes is right now.
Yeah.
What have you learned from doing both photos and films? Like, how's that influenced your work for each?
So when I started to focus on films, I started to more thinking about as a director, not only as a photographer, because I need to figure out like the scenes that I will be shooting one by one.
Yeah.
You know, I have to have like this continuous shift, you know, even about like people doing something, the message that should be delivered, the perspectives, the light, like everything. I started to more thinking like a playing chess, like what's gonna be my 10 steps in the in the forward, right? Instead of just like shooting whatever I see. You know, I already started to think I'm gonna start here and then we're gonna continue there and there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking like a storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you sell presets for people who do not know, which is really funny because of the way that you take images. You shoot black and white. So, what is your approach to your presets and where can people find them?
You know, with presets, it should be always very conscious decision because everyone sees the world a little bit different. Some people will find will be driven by the contrast in photography. Some will be wanting to have very soft light and shadows. So it really depends of what kind of style you're shooting. I was always driven by more like a film noir style. Like I wasn't scared about shadows and lights, etc.
Yeah.
So that's how I made my presets. I was just adjusting until I felt like okay, now they look good. Now I changed my presets a little bit. I started also to use Photoshop more because the Lightroom is very limited. You can't edit, for example, skin the way you have to edit it. But for people who want to buy them, there is a Meridian Presets website where I sell it. But I also, I don't know if I can mention, I also do like a very complex GIF and cinemagraph tutorial, like 2 hours. You can be like, I just teach there everything I know about cinemagraphs and GIFs because I use them a lot on my stories.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I try to give this experience for people that it's more alive, you know, it's more like a piece of film and that people can experience.
It's funny because obviously I didn't ask any of the questions regarding your gifts. But yes, if people wanted to find that educational resources, where could they go?
They can just write me a message because my website is under construction, like the Squarespace. But if they gonna write me a message on Instagram, Once Through Hero, I'm gonna direct them to the place.
Yeah, cool. For those people who obviously maybe don't know your work, the crazy people out there, and they're looking for an idea for colors and stuff, who in what style would best suit your presets?
I mean, in general, my presets works really well for people who doesn't care like about light.
Yeah.
You know, and are conscious of using light in their photography. It's not they're not shooting in just random spots and thinking that they can fix it in the editing.
Yep.
They should be very conscious of how they shoot, and those presets should be fine for them.
Cool.
You know?
I realized that was kind of a duplicate kind of question, but I was hoping you'd shorten it, which you did. Your approach to color grading or coloring. It's color grading the film term. For photographers or filmmakers out there, what is your mindset in terms of how you go about dealing with the colors in an image? Like, are you one for pushing out that abstract kind of vibe, or because I know some people struggle with the whole documenting / artistic balance, and I think color is that point where they need to decide, or they feel like they need to decide which direction should I go in terms of color. Does it need to be more realistic in terms of like color reproduction, or do I want to be more artistic? Do I want to have things not be true to life, but give my images like something else that's not there? You know. So what's your approach there?
I would say that my stories in general are not about showing like everyday life, so that's why even the colors I'm choosing, they are more a little bit abstract, like the colors that we don't see in the real world, you know. And and so I'm really obsessed about in general about old films, you know, like the shots that people were used with Kodak or with Fuji, like this kind of film, this kind of color grade that those film shots were you know, having because of the chemicals they were using. So I really love the feeling. Like, what I don't like about some of the images I'm seeing is that often people are crushing contrast. Like, they're just overusing it without thinking, you know, especially on the skin tones. Like, photography in general can overexpose your skin. I mean, like, some little spots and, you know, those kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not about faking the face, you know, like blurring everything, but just like cleaning contrast on the skin. So yeah, people also often just doesn't do it well. Like Kitcheners, for example, I think their editing is one of the best in the industry. Like in general, like honestly, how they shoot and how they edit, they're so consistent, and the colors and everything is just so great. No.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's because they're shooting in the cloudy Scottish countryside.
And how
nice
they
cloudy
achieved
light.
this look, it was amazing, you know, because it's not very,
Agreed.
But I also saw, for example, the wedding from San Francisco, they were, I think, shooting. It was like the couple, the groom, he was like an Asian looking guy, and still like the colors work so well in those environments, and they're really great about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So in wrapping up, we've got a couple of usual questions that we draw on at the end. So do you have any general advice for anyone that's just getting started in the industry?
My advice would be to just think about your work as try to have as much work as you need to survive and to have just a safe environment in terms of your financials. But at the same time, just don't be scared to shoot the way you want to shoot, or you saw somewhere that you admire and you would like to try something similar, even to find interesting people, and go somewhere and try to post the work that you resonate, because this way you're gonna attract the clients that also have the same approach to life and photography as you have. That's how I did it, you know, because at the beginning I was just like shooting wherever I can, you know, and then I just realized I have the whole season. I was booked for the whole season, but maybe 5% of what I did was I was like feeling good about it, you know, and then the rest was just like a random people, and the photos was very random as well.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
Obviously, you've recommended a for, what was it? A frame? What was it?
Every frame a painting.
Every frame a painting, yes. But do you have any book recommendations or any other resources that you've learned from that you think others might benefit from the knowledge?
So for the people who are interested about books and storytelling, I can highly recommend you to read 2 books of Kindra Hall. One of them is called Stories That Stick, and the second one is Choose Your Story, Change Your Life. And those books are amazing, and you can read it in one day. And she explained how the world works and how the storytelling surrounds us in general in the daily life, the brand we choose, like everywhere we go. And the another book that I can recommend you, and probably some of you could hear, is Still Like an Artist. And that's an amazing book of how just artistic work is made, and is made of many things that we have learned. And so in general, like the thing is that the author said is like nothing is new, everything is kind of stealed from the other people. Let's give you an example. If you will try to be like a kitchen nurse, right? There are many people who are trying to be like them. Even they are editing the same way. They are started to shoot like them, but they will never gonna be like kitcheners. And those who knows kitcheners will always see their work like just someone who steal their ideas. There is no soul, right?
Yep.
Okay, and in this book, there is one thing that was like changed my mind completely. But when you do the same thing, for example, when you steal someone's ideas and when you do it with 100 people at the same time, people will think you are a genius.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this idea changed my life because I try to take ideas also from others, not from myself only, but to do it in the way that people won't like they're not able to uncode it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people want to know the author's name, it's Austin Kleon.
Yeah.
I'm a Patreon subscriber to his content, which I gain inspiration from his thoughts and opinions quite often. So yeah, great.
It's another easy reading book.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea that Kendra Halls can read them in a day because I just like that easy consume the content.
Yeah.
And then take what you want from it. Yeah.
And by the way, I think Still Like an Artist, it's available on YouTube for free to listen as an audiobook. I think so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Definitely go and try and download that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you very much for
with some little hiccups.
with some little hiccups that I'll edit out. So yeah. But yeah, so for those who have really enjoyed this listen and want to learn more about you and your work, where can people find you online?
Oh, so they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is I need to check if I have dots there. Yes, that's a one.story.hero. So one story hero with dots in between one and hero.
Yeah.
And my main website is rafalbojar.com. I'm also changing this one story hero website because I'm preparing, or I don't know, maybe I should mention the workshops in Scotland this year.
Please do. That was going to be my next question. Push
we have found really we are doing together with Bernadetta Kupiec workshops in near Edinburgh. And it's going to be a few days workshops. We rented a venue for 7 days, and we're going to be shooting a lot.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And Bernadetta's been on this podcast before as well. So
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's great.
Exactly.
What are the dates of your workshop? Do you know, or is that putting you on the spot?
Yeah, let me see on my
because that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, where is it? I should have it on my... It's going to be in November. I think it's around 20 November until we didn't have dates set up like 100%, but we rented the place. We are not sure if it's going to be for 3-4 days or for 7 days.
Yeah.
We are
Very
still
cool.
brainstorming.
So keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be very exciting. Yeah. And for people who want to know more about us, you can find us online. Our website is perspectivebycinemate.com. It's brand new. So, yeah, that's there. You can also join us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And Instagram at Perspective by Cinemate. I butchered that bit, sorry. And thank you very much for our sponsor with Jack, who if you need insurance stuff for your wedding business, if you're a freelancer or a wedding creative, definitely give Ashley Baxter a shout over there, because she's very, very, very passionate about what she does. Yeah. If you have loved this conversation, you can hit that subscribe button over on our YouTube channel at Perspective by Cinemate, or join us wherever you get your podcasts, and we hope to see you in the next episode. However,
In the meantime,
enjoy your life.